what's up? Red Panda Anthem. Red Panda, what's good?
We try to stay non-political, but sometimes we do have our favorites, and he's a good guy. So yeah, shout out to Jamal Bowman. And if you're in Georgia, Herschel Walker does not seem like a good person to vote for. I'll be honest with you. He's scary. He's very scary.
Oh man.
What don't you like about Herschel? I don't. I just want it for the laughs and giggles. Go ahead.
Herschel Walker is extremely hard.
My Lord.
You know the problem. This is my problem with Herschel Walker. I'm not mad that he's a Republican. I'm not mad that he's pro-life, whatever. My issue is that you find a football player who has no career. Like, if they could have found somebody way better to represent the conservative views, right? Like, you could
not in the era where everybody care about likes, not to cut you off, and viewership and sensationalism.
Well, a lot of people, I mean, Herschel Walker, let's be honest, a lot of people aren't even familiar with him. Like, I'm familiar with him because I'm from that era.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of kids that don't even know who Herschel Walker is. This is the first time even hearing about him. So
kids aren't voting though.
You take a mediocre football player, like, it's disrespectful. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's enough that I'm sure if there was a black doctor, a black accountant who's conservative, who's pro-life, that you could have all the views that you want, but just get somebody that's actually qualified that can actually complete a sentence. He sounds like he got CTE. He's going crazy on these debates. He bugging out. Like, it's hard for him to finish sentences, and I'm listening. And it's tarnishing his legacy because he's just running around with it. It's just nonsense. And then you run around with all these senators and they back, and you know that he's not intelligent and you're backing him. That's a slap in the face. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, he's not intelligent, and it's something that is just like a joke, but you backing him.
And he's winning.
Maybe they're backing him on purpose for that reason.
Exactly. That's my whole point.
Easy puppet to control.
That's my whole point.
And he's well, I mean, the preliminary polls have him leading right now, which is like even more so. Like,
if Uncle Ruckus get in office,
what we doing, Georgia?
Uncle,
we gotta come to Atlanta.
Uncle Ruckus.
That's what it is. We gotta We've been out of Atlanta too long.
Yeah,
we gotta come back.
But whatever you choose,
tomorrow. I mean,
tomorrow's the day.
You
chose violence today.
Dr. Oz, he's out here. He's running. He's running
Pennsylvania.
He's running for senator, I believe, in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Stacey Abrams, she's running for governor.
Yep.
It's a couple high profile.
Some big states are up for grabs. And obviously it has an impact on the market.
Well, let's talk about that.
Let's go there.
So, speaking of impact on the market, go ahead.
So, stock market usually goes up. This is a historical fact. We've talked about this several different times.
I got you.
Usually goes up after midterm elections, especially when the government is split. Meaning, like, so let's say the Republicans take control of the House. Now it'll be a split government where they have a Democratic president. So when it's not just like one party controlling all branches. Sure enough, the Dow Jones finished the day up 423 points. S&P was up 36 points. NASDAQ is up 89 points. And it looks like the market is up in after hours as well.
Yeah.
So
the real test will be tomorrow morning, though, because Mondays and Fridays have the highest probability of going up due to reporting to clients. But if we end up tomorrow and Wednesday, that is a great sign. Speaking of volatility in the market, if Trump announces that he is going to run for president again, that will throw some volatility in the market for sure. And with Elon having a Twitter platform, and I don't know, you may even see Trump on Parler with EA. This will be a very interesting 2 years. Also, during times of economic calamity or economic downslide, you have a higher probability of a dictatorial like candidate winning and running for office. So I know it may be like a joke that Trump could come in and win.
No, that's not a joke.
No, that's real.
I mean, we spoke about that with the congressman. I think if Donald Trump decides that he wants to run, he at least has a 50% chance. His biggest problem will actually be getting elected from the Republicans because the Republican establishment doesn't like him because he went rogue. But I don't see how he doesn't have a very good chance of winning. If he can manage to get the Republican nomination, I think he wins. Yeah. I think he wins. The only thing that he might have a hard time getting a Republican nomination.
We got the criminal lawsuits too.
That's what I'm saying. He
That
got a
might
lot.
get in the way.
He got a
Lot
lot going
going
on,
on.
but
Yeah.
he has at least a 50% chance
Of course.
of winning, because at the end of the day, he still got millions and millions and millions of people that support him.
Yeah.
He had the second most votes
in the history.
In the history.
This is facts. Here's a quick.
While acting like an idiot.
Yeah.
Imagine if he comes in and tries to act presidential and has a good VP and a good cabinet. If he finds a Rumsfeld next to him, he could be dangerous. But I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just to add to from a historical standpoint of midterms, I just wrote down some historical facts. So the S&P, I didn't even know this before reading it. The S&P has risen 15% in the 12 months after midterms since 1950. 15%. That's pretty ridiculous. All right. And so like when people are looking at, I know I'm glad that we broke down what the yields meant with Steve Leisman a couple of weeks ago, because here's what this means when Republicans break up the Democratic control. All right. So Congress would likely send historically high bond yields tumbling, given that Republicans' historic commitment to less government spending. So that's the first thing. And the other part of it is that will send stocks up as well, given the inverse relationship between bond yields and equity prices. And so if we see bond yields go down, obviously equity prices go up. So when we talk about how this can affect the stock market, right? If the Republicans can break the threshold of not having a Democratic control of the Congress, that's what that means, right? So you'll see that inverse: bond yields go down, equity prices go up.
Also, recessions are more likely to happen when a Republican is president. I mean, if they do see the bond yields lower, I mean, we're at some of the lowest levels we've had in hit. Like, hypothetically, if they go any lower, I'm looking at TOT. The low is $80.51. That would be the low from 2004. Like, how much more do they want the bond market to drop as a result? This is the first time in history, I think, in 90 years, that a 80-20 equity and bond split is negative. Like, if you think Redfin and Zillow has collapsed, if you go look at the bond market, which I call August of 2020, when we hit the top, we've seen levels that we've never expected to hit in the bond market. The bond market has crashed like tech stocks, which is not supposed to do. You guys need to go do your research on if they do drive the bond market lower, what is the motivation and reasoning behind that? And at some point, they're going to erode the 401k market away so bad, the way that they did pensions in the late 1970s and late 1980s as well, if they do. So,
all right. So let's talk about this. It looks like the Republicans will probably gain a lot of momentum from this election.
Shellacking for the Democrats, to quote Obama.
Potentially. So looks like we'll probably have a split government. So if history is any indicator, that means that this election will be good for the stock market, especially I think from tomorrow to April.
Yep, best 6 months
is the best time frame. So, okay, will the stock market have a nice run from tomorrow to April, assuming things go the way that we think they will go, with the Republicans taking a lot of seats?
Troy, you want to go first, and then I can chime in?
No, I was going to say there's still factors, right? Like, obviously, outside of just the election. I think one of the things that people are not paying attention to is the CPI number comes in Thursday, and that will tell us where inflation is at. Where are we at with inflation? Is it cooling down or is it not cooling down? Do we have to raise more basis points? I think that's something that is extremely important, right? Because like if we're talking over the next 6 months, and if you look at historically where they're saying we're going to be in March with the rate, they're thinking like, all right, I've seen some projections at 4.85 to 5%, right? Like that's gonna, like, I don't care who's in office. Like if inflation keeps rising, that's still going to hurt the market. So I think there's a lot of other factors that we have to pay attention to.
3 big things. We can get to it at some point, but the layoffs. You have Meta laying off, Zillow, Morgan Stanley is laying off people, and not because they want to. They have to make the balance sheet. And for everyone listening at home, if you don't know, they're laying off. One of the first measures that you can take is to lay off people to get more liquidity in your company. When you have the biggest companies on the face of the earth laying off 13 to 20% of their workforce, it is a sign that things are really bad. Number 2, I read a stat that 49% of small business owners cannot pay their rent in the month of October. So those stats around the economy being better the 6 months after. That's why I was saying maybe 3 weeks ago, you need to go look at those stats and see if that's true when quantitative easing is not there. Quantitative easing was kind of like a hack if you had the stock market on God mode. And we can go into, if we want to later, the stuff with FTX and then run into liquidity issues. I remember even earlier this year when we was in Miami talking with Terrence, and I'm like, Coinbase could go out of business, and everyone thought I was crazy. And FTX could argue is more popular. They're having liquidity issues, and then there are some hedge funds that could be going out of business in the next 2 or 3 years. So I think the market overall, for sure, the S&P 500, the Dow is calibrated and weighted to always do well. But the rest of the general market, I am concerned about, especially since we're having all these layoffs.
This that Red Panda Anthem. Ian, what's up? This that Red Panda Anthem. Red Panda, what's good? Red Panda Anthem. Whole clip going up. I know they can't stand it.